Hey everyone, welcome to the Comics Coffee Metal Podcast, episode 6. So, it's been a little while since the last episode, like 6 months, a little while, but that's all due to some changes that have been happening in my life. All great, good changes, but very time consuming ones. It did give me time, though, to re examine what this podcast is and how I want to approach it. During that time, I realized that I don't really have the additional time to do the video versions the way I want to do them. So I decided to scrap that and just keep this audio only for now at least. Um, Once I decided that, I also had to decide how am I going to do these audio episodes. So for now, I decided, if you're going to do something, might as well rip off the best. So I'm ripping off Mark Maron. We're having a little discussion right now, and I'm going to get right to the guest. And we'll see how that goes. It'll evolve over time to see what works, what's going to be best for everybody on an entertainment level, and what services my guests more. All right, so that out of the way, let's get on to the episode. My guest today is Joe Mulvey, a comic creator responsible for the books Scam, Counter-Terror, and Wailing Blade. His new upcoming book is Happy Hill. It looks fantastic. We talk a little bit about it in the episode. I originally met Joe through Twitter a few years ago, and I can honestly say I've truly enjoyed knowing and interacting with him from like the very beginning. I finally got to meet Joe in person last year at C2E2, and he's just a great guy and someone I can honestly call a friend. He's funny, smart, and a hell of an artist. Now, apologies for Joe's side of the audio. Despite pulling from multiple feeds, the connection wasn't as pristine as I would like. I did my best to clean it up so you can hear all the great Joe movie goodness, but just a little caveat there, a little asterisk next to this. So apologies, but it shouldn't be too bad. Um, and with that said, let's get to it. I think we should probably start talking about what got you into comics, into making comics, into making the worst decision of your life and saying, I have to do this. Otherwise, life is pointless, besides our kids and our families and the
Right.
people we love.
Well, I will say this. What got me into comics was comics, right? Like, I remember as a kid riding my bike, going to the candy store. I played a lot of sports as a kid, and maybe like between park and games and stuff. And I grew up in New York, Queens, New York, where I still live happily. The comic shop had a not a spinner rack, but like a rack that was like against the wall that just had like comics kind of staggered. And I saw this What If, and it was a What If comic, and it was with Wolverine on the cover, and it had X Men and something called the Inferno. And I didn't
Okay.
know what it was. And I didn't know any of it, and it was probably older because it was a candy store, so it wasn't like they had the newest issues. So I would say maybe it was like 3 to 6 months old,
Hmm.
and I just remember like instead of getting like a Gatorade or getting like a drink or getting candy or something like that, it was like $1.25, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna buy this, and I bought it, and I went home, and I was like, the juice just hit me hard. I was like, what is this? What is going on in these? Like, I think real comic fans get that bug early, where you're amazed that it looks like almost like stills from an animation cartoon or something. Like, just
Hmm.
something about the art draws you in so much.
Yeah.
And then I kind of just kept going back. And I remember going home to my house and up through the couch looking for money. And I definitely wasn't at the age of working yet. And I was like, what can I do around the house for my father and like my family? Was, what can I do to earn money? And doing the grass, painting like my fence in the yard, like all this stuff. And I got like $8. And back then you could buy like almost 8 comics with
Oh
that.
yeah. Yeah. The good old days.
And yeah, right. When it was like at least $1 a comic. And then I ran and I bought a whole bunch of comics. And again, I was only in this candy store. So unfortunately, like they had, I don't want to disparage anyone's work, but like I ended up buying like a bunch of Thor comics.
Okay.
And I was not a Thor fan because like back then it was very like the and that. It sounded like a Shakespearean book
Hmm.
or whatever. And that kind of
You don't want
maybe
you don't want to read
different.
that. You don't want to read that when you're
No,
a
right?
kid.
No, but I was
Yeah.
like, that hammer is cool as shit. So I was like, oh, and then I started drawing the hammer, right? Like,
Yeah.
and then I think this natural proclivity to just draw came out of just pure enthusiasm for the medium of comics. Like I
Nice.
saw it, and I like same thing with sports, right? Like to me, I see baseball, I want to play baseball. I see a sport, I want to play sport. Um, I'm not a tall guy, but I like to shoot a basketball. Like there's just something about it that felt like I could do it. And then, um, I mean, forget it. Once I found a comic shop, it was over.
Game
I
over
think the
then.
first one I went to, yeah, it was like Jim Hanley's Universe, and it
Okay.
was,
Oh yeah, that's a
it,
that's a that's a one to find, right? Like
oh man, oh man. And then you walk in, and I remember like my father and my family were beyond supportive. Like the second
awesome.
I was like, um, I'm not at a baseball game. I'm not going out to the park. I'm staying home and I'm drawing. And I just wanted to sit in the living room while my family watched TV or played cards or sat and did family stuff. And I just wanted to sit there and draw. And I copied from the books. And then all of a sudden, I got into Todd McFarlane and Rob Liefeld and
Hmm.
all that stuff. And that just beyond jazzed me because it was at the time where they were forming Image,
Yeah.
and they were like rock stars. And to see the medium through that, where these guys are on TV and they're on
Yeah.
entertainment
I
night, like it was
I don't think people like who just started reading comics in the past 20 years even really like get like how strange the early 90s were with how popular comics were and the millions upon millions being sold and the just untold amounts of books and independent books being put out and everyone was putting all these really random books because they're just coming out and people were making money because there's all these speculators and just the sheer celebrity of some of these people like Rob Liefeld was on a frickin' Gene commercial and on Dennis Miller on HBO. I remember watching that and it's like it's just insane. Was it Dennis Miller on HBO or was it did he have a different show?
no, no, no. He,
Regardless,
he was on he was on Dennis Miller. Yeah, yeah, I remember.
yeah.
I
Um,
remember Todd McFarlane. I remember walking through my aunt's house and walking through her apartment, and she was an older lady, and she had QVC on, right? QVC is
yes,
like a home
yes.
shopping channel,
I
and
used to
I'm
watch
walking,
those damn things all the time.
dude, and like there was like Todd McFarlane was selling like a Spawn box, and
Yeah,
like it
it's
it, it
insane.
wasn't a ridiculous thing to think, oh, I can make comics and people will be, whatever. Like I remember
No.
as a kid, like early, like being 13, 14 years old and being like, I'm gonna draw comics for a living. That's what I'm gonna do. And then like my my not fam like not my close family because they knew that I was serious about it, but um I was just like telling this to anyone that would listen. You know what I mean? Like I
Mhm.
remember like going to high school and going to my guidance counselors, when you're getting towards college and they're like, what do you want to do? What do you want? And I'm like, oh, I'm going to draw comics. It wasn't even like a question of like, nope, I'm going to draw comics. And then they were like, well, and I'd be in the class with like maybe like the room with like three other students. And one guy's like, I took an aptitude test and my aptitude test said I should be a mortician. And these are like real things that are going on. And I just remember, like, because I've always been a smartass, and I'm like, oh, that sucks for you. And you're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm gonna be able to work in my pajamas, dude. You're gonna have to like go wear a suit every day, and people are gonna be crying. Like, that's not a good job, Like, it really made it seem like it was a very doable job. And I think like maybe a generation before us, where they didn't understand comics at all, and people poo-pooed them easily. I think that's kind of why my family was like, I mean, beyond supportive, like super
Mhm.
supportive.
That's
Whatever you want to
huge.
do, you
That's
can
huge
do it.
having that support.
It's massive. It's massive. And when I got like I had a computer, it was like an old like one of those old what was it? The original like almost like neon Apple,
Oh
like
yeah,
a
the
Macintosh.
Max. Yeah, the Max with the colored like back of the monitor or whatever.
Yes,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I had one of those. And then my uncle came over and like I was very close to the family. And my uncle's like, if you're gonna be an artist, I've read up like you can't do on that piece of crap. Come on, we're going to the store. And he would take me to the store, and I'm an only child, also. I'll say so. Like he would just go and buy me a new computer, and
Wow.
we were not a rich family. We were not well off. We were low middle class, but like anything that fed into my um, hobby and passion, like my family was more than happy.
You
My
have a
daughter
pretty
was my
awesome family, I must say that.
I listen to
To
me.
be that supportive and, to us, it's obvious, but I think hopefully they feel that, like, yes, we did, we're super glad we supported Joe so much because, you're putting out the books you wanna put out, while I definitely feel, and I'm sure many other people feel that your work is only getting better, and it's already why isn't Joe working on a big 2 book? But for me, I'm glad that you're doing Wailing Blade. I'm glad you got to do Scam. I'm glad this next project you've been showing me little snippets of. Like, I'm excited to see, and some of it is from knowing you personally, and some of it's from knowing what you've done. But like, I'm ready to buy into whatever Joe Mulvey is doing on his own. And I think coming from your inspiration, coming from those early image days, I think that's pretty cool to see you doing your thing, doing your stories. And granted, you may not be on QVC yet, hawking a
That's the
Wailing
goal.
Blade box,
Yeah,
with a life size Wailing Blade, being held up
we
by
have
some
made. We have made.
Q,
It is made.
being held up by some QVC person, while they're zooming in onto signed copies of your book and the little tickers going off. I'm glad to hear that was kind of your origin story for that because to me, I see you're doing it. You're
Yeah,
you're you're making.
let me also preface it. I don't do it full time. Like I also have I have a storyboard, job that I do as well.
Well, I think the only reason, to be honest, a lot of people don't do comics full time is just that right now the money's not there. You have
Right,
to be incredibly, you have to have some sort of luck because there's so many skilled people who are not working full time. But you have bills to pay, you have a family, but you're still pursuing it, you're still doing it. And just because comics is not your main career in terms of money making, it doesn't mean it's not your biggest creative success. And
right. Well,
you're
you mentioned it before. My kids are probably my biggest creative success so far. But you know what? I'm just thinking now. Like I get a lot of people who get like commissions and all this stuff, and they're like, "Why are you not working for Big Two? Why are you not working for Big Two?" And the truth of it is I don't think Big Two needs me. You know what I mean? Big Two is a machine that's gonna doesn't need Joe Mulvey in the least bit. But I love to draw some of that stuff, 100%. But I really think the thing that I want to do is I want to put out my own stuff, and it's
yeah.
really a much harder go of it. But it's all about doing your own stuff. But that said, a publishing company like Comic Club is super nice to me. Other publishers I'm talking to right now that are like um, not big too are very complimentary and interested in putting out my work. The next thing I do, which hasn't been announced anywhere, that I'll say on your show is a book called Happy Hill, and it's something I'm writing and drawing from Comics Tribe, and it's pretty much like X Files meets Lethal Weapon. It's got a little comedy to it. Same time, it's about a resort in upstate New York that may or may not be the site of where 30 people have gone missing, and a ragtag duo that are on their last legs in the FBI are about to get kicked out, or they solve this case. And they go up there and they find out that the so-called reason that people are going missing is this believed myth or boogeyman type character up there called the Woodsman,
Mhm.
and it's tasked with these FBI agents to go in undercover to a upstate resort and find out what's going on. And it's a story I've had
That
in mind for years, and I can't wait to tell it. It'll be
I
out
I I
summer
think
of
it
the
sounds
2020.
I think it sounds super cool, and I can tell everybody the snippets of the art you showed me. It just like people like to say like, "Oh man, he's really leveling up on this one." It's like you were running up the steps 4 or 5 steps at a time between like Scam to
You
Wailing
promised
Blade
this.
to this.
No, you're very, very kind. But like, I mean, I can say the same thing to you. Like, you just showed me a page, 2 pages of something, and the storytelling is like if you were next to me, I would have flare chopped you on the chest. Storytelling is so good. I was like, damn. I was like, I'm gonna steal that.
It's easy for me to try to dismiss that comment because it's a comment I get a lot, which I'm thankful for, saying good storytelling. Um, but it's kind of for me like I'm trying to tell myself it's not equivalent to them saying like, well, he has a nice personality, but
I
it's
agree. I
it,
struggle with storytelling. That to me
it's
is all storytelling is a comic story. Like I sometimes go to draw the pretty shoulder or the
Mhm.
muscular, stomach rather than concentrate on the story. Like I can't tell you how fast my eyes flew through your panel layouts on that page you showed me. I apologize to anyone listening to this because this is kind of like me describing a piece of artwork you've never seen. But like I see that as for strength. Man. I see that as
I definitely appreciate it, and it's definitely something I give a ton of thought to. You know, Not doing this full time myself, I have plenty of time throughout the day to at least think about what I'm going to do. So, a lot of the times my stories are laid out 3 or 4 times before I even put a pencil to paper to do it. If I'm walking back from dropping my daughter off at school, I'm thinking about layouts. If I'm going for a run, I'm thinking about layouts. If, I'm, you know, should be paying attention to where I'm driving, I'm thinking about layouts. You know, it's I think it's super important because I know where my weaknesses lie, and I really do appreciate hearing that. There's that shitty part of the artist brain that's always like, yeah, but they're only saying that because, and it's hard to beat that down. But
I have
enough
people.
about
No, about artist insecurity. No.
yeah.
I think it's a real thing. My only thing is, I feel like there are so many talented artists, so many talented stories that it's really just story that grabs you into it. Like the art, especially with comics, has to draw you in, but it has to number one service what the story is, right? So like to me, like you mentioned Wailing Blade. Like Rich had this really great idea about Wailing Blade, and then when he and I collaborated on it, I started throwing some more things into the mix, and like I felt such pressure to make sure I delivered it in a way that like did justice to his story. And even looking back on it now, I could see where I flubbed storytelling things, and I should have played up one emotion more than the other, or made characters emote more, or did something different. And if anything, my weakness is what you just said. Like sometimes I'll spend a week on layout because I have such trouble with them, and then I get like this almost like an insanity thing where I do this entire page layout and I love it, and then I'll wake up the next day and I'll be like, oh, I can change these two panels. Like I almost have like, especially this year doing the my own series where I'm writing and drawing. I have this thing of like the layout's done, the layout's done. Like
Mhm.
it's about expediency and getting the story out. So to me, storytelling is number one across the board. Like pretty drawing doesn't matter as much as the intent of
I
my
well,
opinion.
I really think it's coming through because again, talking about art, people can't look at and reference what we're talking about. But there's a particular panel you put, um, and it's like these people they're like walking through like the front of like I think a house, and you kind of like see like a fence in front of them, like just the way it's staged. I'm like, oh snap! Like this is like just a really well done piece of like just cinematography shot. Like this is just like wow, you're saying it's not necessarily about the drawing being pretty, but you're obviously you're skilled enough to where it looks pretty anyway. That kind of that's had me thinking a lot about like I've noticed this with a lot of I hesitate to say peers, a lot of artist friends that um I think have really refined their styles in the past few years. There's Tyrell Cannon, Brian Lovell, and you. I think you guys have all I remember being introduced to your work a few years ago, and I think we definitely met on Twitter, and I think it was we were both bashing Stegman for some reason back in the good old days where everyone just piled on Stegman and he took it before he's big time.
Good old days.
Yeah.
That doesn't change. That
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
that's,
But
that's okay. That's all right.
there's definitely a golden era of where just everyone in like just about a dozen people like we all just took every opportunity to shit on Stegman, and it was probably just because he was just so damn good, and he's such a sweet, nice guy in reality that it's just like, and he's
Well, I
such a good
agree with the
sport about
first
it.
part of that comment. Sure.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Um, Well, I'm saying this just in case he hears it to butter him up to get him on the show. Anyway, because who really cares about his feelings? He's got his own podcast now. Anyway, he's too
No
big
one
time.
here.
He's never gonna be here. But no, seriously
He'll
though,
go on.
like
He'll go on. He'll come on.
I remember seeing your work, and I'm like, oh wow, you have that really thin, clean line. That I'm like, I can see the Umberto Ramos influence that you've mentioned before to me. But I also saw like a bit of the McFarlane, a bit of the. I actually saw a bit of Kevin McGuire in some of your stuff, and I think I with you, the three people I just mentioned, you, Brian, and Tyrell. I kind of in my brain imagined like, oh, here's where I kind of see where their styles are going. But each and every one of you have like kind of gone a different way. Like I saw you becoming more, you know, I guess, quote unquote, realistic in terms of like Frank Quietly type with like proportions and things like that. And you just said, nah, fuck it. Things are getting crazy.
It, I'm gonna just say it's 110% for my own self. Like the other artists you're lumping me with is insane because Brian Level just not only as one of the finest human beings on the planet, like an
Yes.
amazing artist, and Tyrell, I don't think I know him as well personally, but his work is amazing. And like what happened was a little while ago, like maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I don't even know. Joe Eisner was like, "You don't read manga?" I'm like, "No, I don't read any manga." And he made me read Akira,
Okay.
and I cannot tell you how that like. I go back and look at Scam,
Mm-hmm.
and Scam is stiff in compared to what I'm doing now, right? But like everyone's art should change over a certain amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like the amount of um, like I get a lot of people sometimes lately to tell me that they see a lot of Trad Moore stuff in my artwork, and I love Trad, but Trad is nowhere near what I do. Like Trad stuff is like Trad is his own. He's Mozart. He's his own genius off in the wilderness doing his thing. But I think it's because Trad wears his manga influence on his sleeve. Like you know what I mean? So it's like a lot of guys like James Harron, Daniel Warren Johnson,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
to me, manga like completely changed the way I look at stuff. Like I love American comics, but like manga just punched me in the face artistically and was like, I'm not doing enough. I'm like
Yeah.
being too stiff. I'm not taking enough risks. I'm not taking like I if I told you the way I used to draw, you would literally get in a car coming and punch me in the face when I tell you how many steps I did before layout and finished ink. Because I had all these little just insecurities as an artist. Like, oh, it's got to be perfect. It's got to be a perfect face. It's got to be and then like I mean, my influences that I look around at now is definitely Todd McFarlane. The guys I've mentioned. I love Stegman's artwork. Gabriel Rodriguez from Lock and
Mm.
Key, and
That
he's
you know
amazing.
what? I'm going to interrupt you because I was going to get to the point saying I'm seeing that Gabriel Rodriguez. I'm seeing not necessarily like, oh, you're doing stuff he does, but I'm getting a vibe like that from what you've been doing
I'm blown
recently.
away by him. I don't look at a lot of his work. I look at his stuff that he posts on Twitter.
Yeah.
More and more, I'm trying to get away from like things that influence me comics wise. Because that
Mm-hmm.
way, hopefully, I'll put out some new stuff. Like I
Yeah.
mean, I'm reading like right now. I'm reading the Parker series
Mm-hmm.
by Darwin Cook, and every time I finish an issue of something, I buy myself the next volume of Pluto, which is a amazing manga. But yeah, man, I think that's the number one thing that kind of tweaked the change in my storytelling. Like is that influence, it changed everything. And as much as I again don't like Joe Eisner as a person, he did do a great thing.
That's I guess I need to start reading some manga myself then. Um,
Good.
that's it is interesting to see this current crop of like, these artists that, the artists that everyone's like, man, this guy, where it's like they're so good, like that you want to be mad at them, but their artwork makes you so giddy inside that you can't help but just be like, oh, this is how do I hook this directly into my veins? Guys like Daniel Warren Johnson and James Herron and,
And Stegman's
Trad
always like
Moore and
a more
Stegman. his recent stuff with Absolute Carnage, like he's going like full 90s style, especially with JP's Mayer's inks. Um, I think it's Mayer, right? JP Mayer. I don't want to say his name wrong. I want
No,
to say
that's
Meyer.
okay.
I want to say Meyer, but I'm pretty sure it's Mayer. But you know, it's full 90s, but it's put through like this modern filter, and I mean that in the
Yeah,
most complimentary way, where it's just like
it's
it's
amazing.
got it's got all the flash of like 90s stuff, but it's got the dynamic range and the more cohesive thinking and the stronger storytelling and just the general better draftsmanship of what artists are doing now.
I couldn't agree more. Now, you know that the inker for segment JP is John Mayer, right? The musician.
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, it's like because I think him and Ryan were in a band together, and then
Well, Your Body is a Wonderland is written about Ryan.
that segment. Yes, it is. Yes, yeah, it is.
So
He's, I
it's
mean,
a yeah,
people
it's a
don't know
little
he's
known
very
fact.
tall.
Yeah.
He's very
Yes,
tall.
it
You
is.
know, and I
And
know.
it's not a sexual thing. It's literally a
Yeah,
wonderland. Ryan dresses up as a small amusement park
well, I
every
mean,
winter.
don't go
Eh,
around that. Just play in the front is all I'll say. But um, no matter what, he's a very talented inker as well, which is kind of like screw you, John Mayer. But
yeah,
like I think there are like so many artists right now, um, big two and non big two, that are just doing like stupid good work. Like
yes,
and like yeah, like every comic company has like a murderer's row. Like we're talking about the '90s in the beginning. Like I mean, even though like a guy like Greg Capullo who's just like unbelievable, but like yeah, like guys like him. You got I think Joel Jones is like out of this world talented.
definitely.
You got a guy like Dan Mora, who
Mm-hmm.
does a lot of work. I think he's a Google
Amazing
works
stuff.
for. Emil Yu, like Matteo Scalera, like there's just a ridiculous amount. Becky Cloonan, oh my God, look at my
George
bookshelf.
Jimenez. George
Yes,
Jimenez.
George Jimenez. Then I'm looking like, I mean, then you have like what's the guys that just did like Hox Pox, like House of X and Cafe La Raz, and you know, it's gotten so crazy that Stuart Immonen, who might be one of the greatest, if not the greatest, comic artist of all time, is just like, you know what, I'm going to retire for a little while. I'm going
Yeah,
to let these youngins run around and do some stuff, and then I'm going to come back and just lay everyone out. But I mean, it's a great time to be a comic fan. So like
yeah.
seeing all this other stuff, it just jazzes me more to like be better and just try to improve constantly.
So with Wailing Blade, you guys ended up doing a song for it, or commissioning a song for it, which was just epically metal and awesome. And I'm not jealous at all of how it turned out.
I
Um,
love that song. That song literally was my soundtrack for so much of drawing that book. Like every day, I would start off in my studio when I was drawing it, and I'd put it on. And
I'm not trying to bang my own horn here or my own drum, or toot my own horn or toot my own drum.
no,
Um,
but if you bang the
but
horn, that would be unique. That would be your thing. You're a horn banger.
I think music and comics being intertwined is something that's like hasn't really been it's been experimented on plenty of times, but it hasn't been fully melded in to where it can be a really common occurrence because it can just be so awesome when you do it. Like, the Wailing Blade song you guys had. It's like this perfect like encapsulation of how that book feels. And
I'm going to tell you something. The sin of it is, and thank you very much for saying that. The very talented artist that helped make that is George that made it is George O'Connor, and he's a Bostonian, and he's a comics writer. He's a really talented guy, along with just being an awesome human being.
yeah,
And he was like getting this really metal vibe from the book, and we
mm,
were like originally like, um, and this is a backstory of Needlessness, but originally Rich had another artist attached to the book. The guy bailed because he literally said, "Wow, it's really hard to draw interiors," and then he just didn't want to do it. So Rich and I were in
he's not
Williamsburg.
wrong.
No, no, it is hard. Absolutely. Rich and I were in Williamsburg, throwing a few adult beverages back. Maybe in like 2018, like the end of the summer, it was hot. We were sitting there, and Rich was like, "All right, I got to find another artist for this," because Rich was completely driven to get this thing made, and it really, I love the concept of it, but I hate sci-fi stuff. I'm not a big sci-fi person. I only saw Star Wars, the original ones when the A New Hope. No, what's the New Hope? No, what's the ones with Ray and the first one that came out?
It's just the new trilogy, they call it,
Yeah,
I think, or the
whatever.
Disney trilogy.
Yeah, right.
Force
The
Awakens
trilogy,
and
The Force Awakens. That's it.
yeah.
So I saw that movie and I was like, oh man, maybe I'll start getting into it. And then he and I started talking, and the beers kept flowing. And I go, you know what? I don't like sci-fi, and I don't have any reference for it. And I don't. I said, but why not? Like a really good artist should go out of his comfort zone and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And that's how we started doing it. And then like the original artist had the blade drawn, and it was like one eighth the size of the way I made it. And then I kind of like, like what you're saying again about the 90s. Like I was just like, let's just go balls to the wall. Let's make it as big and as over the top as we can, and it'll
And
be
I
fun. And then you know,
no insult to Rich's writing because that book was great and Rich is a great writer, but I think just the image of that blade, I think that's what got so many people like, "What is this thing? This gnarly looking sci-fi crazy ass blade, like, is it's something that looks like it belonged from a manga or some crazy sci-fi movie from the 80s that like you find playing on Showtime at 2 in the morning after you sneak out of bed to watch cable after your parents went to sleep. Not that I have a reference for that, but that it has that just like what is I need to know more about this feeling. So I'm really glad to hear that because I knew the story beforehand about the different artists and all that. So I'm glad to hear that you're the one who designed that blade because it's just epically badass.
I can't tell you, and I don't know if Rick spoke about it, but he, the amount of times I was like, everything has to be unique, everything has to be different, everything has to be our thing. Like, so I mean, I think I spent no joke 6 months just designing everything, designing animals, insects, weapons, clothing, like. And I just kept sending it to him and Tyler was like, Jesus Christ, just draw the book, dude. Just draw the. And I'm like, no, it's got to be, And then when we got to the phase where we're talking like marketing, and George reached out to us, and we had shown him some pages because he's a buddy, and he was just like, "Look, I'm going into the studio. I got to record something for like let me just try to throw down something for you guys. Like, tell me what the story's about." And I think he did that thing maybe in like one day in the studio.
Yeah,
And I
it's
was like,
crazy.
you're a musician, you know what it's like. Like I don't have reference for that. That's not a something even remotely in my skill set. And I'm just like, I was blown away by it. And then it kind of helped too because like we got to use it for the Kickstarter video, and it helped as a little bit of promotion to kick it out there and let people listen to it. Spotify playlist, and then we kind of really jazzed up the whole '90s push of it by like got an actual sword made. So we have a prop sword of it made. It's like 6 feet
Yeah,
long.
you got to Google pictures of this thing. It's insane and
Yeah,
hilarious, and I desperately want to one day hold that thing. It's just you have to feel like you can actually just like cleave planets with that thing when you're holding it. I don't know what it's like when you actually are, but it's just so crazy.
I will tell you right now, there is only one person so far in the history of this world that has held it with just one hand. Skybound director of, I believe he's director of business, or I'm not, but Sean Kirkland, who is
Okay.
known as Big Clutch on Twitter, and he is the only person who's ever, and he is a gigantic man, and he held it in one hand with his bare paw, and he raised it up on the New York Comic Con floor in 2018. And when I tell you all the people that were in the packed row walking around, I was like, that's going to fall down and that's going to kill somebody. And the sad thing in my head was, even if it just hurts them, that's going to be great PR. You know what I mean? Like, that's a good move. It's worth it.
Oh. Wailing Blade Kills 2 at NYCC.
Yeah.
Oh
We had
boy.
so many people, the show we debuted it, that brought up the fact that, like, it was so unique because books are normally never named after a weapon. They're named
No,
after the
that's
person.
true.
Yeah. So
You
we were
got
like,
like
oh, yeah.
Witchblade or
Right.
you know that's all I can think of, but
You
I'm
don't
sure
have
there's a
Mjolnir doesn't have his own, like
no,
his own
no.
series, and Snicked,
But you know
Wolverine's
what? You know
claws doesn't
what?
get it.
You know what though? If Thor came out now, I would put down big money that it would be called something like Mjolnir. Like they wouldn't call it like Thor. It'd be something more abstract, like the weapon he uses and all that. Or you know what? Maybe that's the next thing. You know, maybe we should do something together, and we'd collaborate and we make Mjolnir because it's
Domain.
public domain. We can do whatever we
I,
want.
I I would love it. Like like every once in a while when I get to talk to an editor, I pitch things, and that's kind of also the reason why I'm writing my next book. It's because I'm like, oh, I also write. Um, Whether I do it well is open to interpretation, but I would love like a book, like an anthology series from Marvel, like Mjolnir Care. Like, you know what I mean? I can't
Yeah,
even say that. Yeah, like where it's just like, where was it before Thor? Where was it after?
yeah.
Like that hammer has its own,
Hmm.
its own history. Um, I don't know. I think yeah, you're right though. It's open domain. So I don't know. Maybe we're gonna get
Yeah.
together in Chicago and talk.
Yeah, yeah, let's go. Let's make some happy plans over some pizza.
Love
Um,
it.
some real pizza, Mr. New York.
Oh, yeah. Okay, let's not get into your pizza. Your pizza is fan. I was in I forget the name of the place. I know there's like one or two places you got to go.
Fact of the matter is though, like, the deep dish thing, that's like when Chicagoans eat pizza on a regular basis, it's not that. It's more the tavern style pizza. But for the deep dish, there's camps. There's certain camps. There's the Lou Malnati's camp. There's the Giordano's camp. Um, I'm definitely a Lou Malnati's guy,
Okay, I
but
went to Giordano.
Giordano's is good too. Giordano's is more of a sauce pie situation, to be honest. But it's in the end, it's all good. Like I would love to one day just have a big old piece of New York style pizza in New York and just enjoy that because the rivalry between the pizzas it's all in good fun. But
Well, it's only good fun, but it's like saying what's the difference between an apple and a brick? There's not really the same thing because listen to me. I was in Giordano's and I was there with Ryan Lee, who's an artist. He draws
Mhm.
Mountainhead for IDW, and Jim Toe, and Alex Cormack, who draws Road of Bones with Rich Hewick, and Kenny Porter, who's a super talented, amazing writer, and he does a book called Barnstormers, and he has other stuff coming out. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of us together, and we sit down, and I guess I had gotten there late, which is my thing, and then they had told the waitress beforehand that I'm from New York. So that
Oh,
automatically a thing of, oh, what does the New Yorker think? So we ordered, I think, three different pies. They
mhm.
all came, and as we were there, people were like waiting. So they were like waiting. They're like, "What does he think?" So I'm eating all three of them. I'm like, "This shit is delicious." So then, after I ate like my third slice, and I was like a huge, like, because that stuff sits in you like an anchor,
Yes.
and I'm drinking beer with it too, so I'm not helping myself. And then so the guy, the waitress goes to the bartender. He's like, he said it. He loves it. It's better than New York. I said, well, no, no, hold on one second. I said, I love it. It's delicious. I said, but it's not pizza. I have never seen a room turn so quickly to where like you could have heard like you could have heard a fly fart. It got so.
Was there a little like record scratch and everyone
I
just
wish
kind of
that
like
would have been the only thing like that, or someone dropping silverware.
and the
And
dog whining in the distance, like just
I said, I love lasagna, and you guys have for some reason called it pizza, and now I'm starting to get like to the point where they're booing and hissing at me, and I'm like, all right, and then the waitress was like, I'm not even joking, just shut up, just shut up, and I'm like, all
oh
right, I'm like, but
oh
it was delicious, it was
oh
absolutely
Joe.
delicious. Like, you're
Oh
gonna come
Joe.
here, you're gonna have some New York. Like, here's my thing, I can't take that pizza on the subway, I can't. You know what I mean? I can't go outside. I'm gonna look like a escape mental patient. I'm gonna have sauce all over my chest. I'm gonna look like I just had a stroke. It's not a conducive food.
Well, that's why I truly believe from the bottom of my heart, Chicago style, New York style, it's all pizza is just it's an amazing food. It's just inferior to tacos in every single way. So, we can just put the conversation to rest about that. Tacos are better than pizza forever and ever. You can do everything with them, take them anywhere. They're the perfect food.
Tacos are good. Tacos are
So,
good. Oh,
That's what this pizza conversation really needs to realize is like either way you're getting bread, sauce, and cheese stuffed in your face, but you're not getting the class that a taco has. You're not getting
man, you can also do
the
fish way better with a taco than you can do it on a slice of pizza.
true. Exactly, exactly. And you
I
you
mean,
could
this
you,
is
you
like
could
Sophie's
actually
choice. Like,
you, could-
this is my Sophie's choice moment right here. Like, tacos or pizza. This is, by the way, this should be your podcast, man. Hard hitting questions like tacos or pizza.
well,
Discuss.
you know what, Joe? I'm gonna put it down right now. Tell me right now. You could only have
No,
one of
don't
these
make
for
me
the
choose.
you
I don't
only
want to
one.
choose.
You could but here's the thing. Just in the general sense, it doesn't have to be a specific kind of
You're only allowed
pizza or
one.
a specific kind of taco, just
Okay.
the general food. You can only have one of them, and not every day, but like you're like, I want to go have this special food. It can only be a pizza or a taco.
I
You
gotta
got you
go
got to
taco.
answer.
I love seafood, so I love like mahi mahi tacos. I love, but I mean, yeah, I gotta go. I'm gonna go taco. I go
All
taco.
right, this is going to be a new recurring question. I'm going to put down right here. I'm going to write down right now.
So
I'm not
always a
just
taco,
randomly scribbling on the paper to get the sound effect. I'm
and I
actually writing this
appreciate that.
down. Joe Mulvey tacos because
Yes,
he loves fish in his face.
I do.
So
Write it down. Let's use that as a soundbite to
I,
start the show.
I'm
Now,
I'm really glad our conversation led to here. Like all this stuff
natural.
about comics and our
Mhm.
passions and our creativeness. It ultimately just comes down to like what is the most important thing to stuff into your face
Yes, I agree. Now, let me just
when
throw
you're.
something at you because this is something that really just shook my family this recent holiday season. I know you have a tight out, but I'm going to throw this onto you. You're only allowed one type of potato for the rest of your life. What potato do you have? Now, I will
Uh,
also preface this by saying my family is gigantically Irish. So this is,
like one
this
type
is,
of like
you only get
between like a
one style of
potato or
potato.
sweet potato or one style of potato.
No, one style
Okay.
of potato. Talking basic.
Um.
Hash
The
brown, French fries,
the
potato chip. Like,
well, I'm gonna give you. I have my answer right now. There's no question.
okay,
Something my mom did and something I do. I slice potato into little, the little circles, real thin.
home fries.
Not
Okay.
thick, thicker thicker than chips. Season them up real good. Throw them in the oven, bake them up, broil them up a little bit. Get some a little burnt around the edges. Get some a little crispy. Some are still a little soft in there. You kind of get a little bit of everything, and you do that, and I could have that potato for the rest of my life. I love potatoes, like
Yes. All right.
all kinds
And
of
you were the right person
potatoes.
to ask.
Mashed, baked, fried, whatever. Don't care. Potatoes delicious. Even sweet potatoes. Even like I don't think they're really potatoes in
Well,
the sense.
I'm going to tell you
But
something
yeah.
else, and this is going into a culinary show now. But I don't like sweet stuff at all. So I don't
hmm
eat ice cream. I don't eat cookies. I don't eat cake. I don't eat candy.
I was like you
Um,
once, Joe, and then my wife turned me because I was all about the salt. Like, my wife's like back when we're, much younger and had much better metabolisms. We would go on goodie runs and we'd go get treats and stuff like that. And I would just be coming back with all this, like the sweetest thing I would get. Like I would get like a pack of Twizzlers, and then I would just have like pretzels and chips and all this other crap. And she would have all the chocolate and all that. But slowly she turned me, so now I love both. And now I am constantly tempted by all foods everywhere all the time. It's terrible. Stay strong, Joe. Do not be ashamed of not liking sweets. You are actually evolved above most other humans because it sucks.
this is the
It
best show
sucks.
ever. The
They
best
they came out.
podcast ever.
I hate Oreos. Okay, let me like I do not like Oreos. I'll eat like one or two a year. Like and same thing with like donuts. Like I just don't really care for them, but occasionally I'll get like a random taste for it. They came out with these fucking dark chocolate Oreos. These things, I must have eaten 3 or 4 packs in December of these things by myself. Like the full on like little package you
Sleeve,
buy.
the sleeve. See,
The
my
no
my
no like the
my
like the like 3 or 4 rows, like the whole pack, like just going through like a
devouring
sleeve a
it.
day. And like
That's
I'm
healthy
like,
though. That's good for you. No
and
problem.
then one day I'm just looking in the mirror. I'm like, what have I become? Like, I'm just thinking about these Oreos.
See,
So,
my wife is
so
gluten free, right? Like,
okay,
so
yeah,
so so I don't have any problem with gluten. My kids, thankfully, knock wood, so far don't have any problem. But my wife is gluten free. But there's like an equivalent that Trader Joe's makes called JoJo's. So they're pretty
oh
much
yeah,
like
I've
an
heard about
Oreo,
those. Yeah.
and they have ones that are the chocolate outside, but the icing tastes like birthday cake.
Oh my.
And I will tell you right now, my kids and my wife love them. And my wife is a bean; she's a stick. I don't. God bless her, and her metabolism stays up, and she exercises all the time. But when I tell you, I rarely have a problem with any smell of any type. The
Mhm.
smell of these cookies, I got to almost leave the room. I can't take it. I'm like,
I
oh,
I
oh.
just the description, I feel slightly diabetic. Like just
Well, that's
uh
what it is. This is Sweet Treats with Joe Mulvey and Don Cadenza. This
is
is it. This is the
we've
show.
we've just backdoored a pilot episode into right into this thing.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is the perfect time to say,
Get out.
yeah,
Get out.
it's time to
Mhm.
get out because now I'm just thinking about Oreos and there's no possible way I can leave right now. It's 11 p.m. where I'm at. It's midnight by Joe.
Yeah.
There's places I can go to get this, but I would have to do unspeakable things to go get these things. And I think I just need to steal away and meditate or something so I don't think about these things. So Joe,
All right.
thank you for coming on.
Thank
It's
you for
always
inviting me.
it's always a blast to talk to you. I'm super excited to talk to you more and hopefully get to hang out at C2E2, which
Yeah,
you will be at
I
this
will.
coming end of February from February was it 27, 28,
I think
and
it's 28, and
oh, it's right.
then
It's a leap
March
year.
1st
We're
and
at a
2nd.
leap year. Yeah. So Joe will be in Chicago at C2E2, February 28th, 29th, and March 1st at McCormick
Can't wait.
Place. You will be an
I will see
artist
you,
at,
brother. I will
yes,
be in
we,
our Sally. I don't know. We didn't get assignments yet, but I will
no,
be
no, yeah,
there.
they
I will
haven't
be
given
the
us
one
tables.
with no banner because I'm not going to take a banner. Probably will make it out of a paper towel and hang it from whoever's banner is behind me. And I guarantee you, if you come to the show,
I've seen jankier banners, Joe, so no shame in that.
it is what it is. But I promise you, if you come to the show and you find me at a table, you not only will have a great time and a great conversation, you also might be able to pick up a copy of Happy Hill #1, an early preview. So we'll see.
So you heard it here. You heard it here first. Happy Hill, Joe Mulvey. Again, from what I've seen, looks amazing. The concept, I love it. You would be foolish not to get this comic and support Joe Mulvey in all his artistic endeavors because he's a fantastic creator, and as you've heard, a hilarious and fantastic person in general. So, Joe, thank you, and I'll see you next month.
You're the best. Thanks,
You're
brother.
the best, Joe. All right, bye bye. Thanks for listening to the Comics Coffee Metal Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and would like early access to future episodes, along with exclusive comics, music, process sketches, videos, commission discounts, and other fun items, please consider going to www.patreon.com/Don Cardenas Art and becoming a patron. This episode is brought to you by my patrons Mark Warner and John Dudley. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.
My favorite thing I've ever been told on Twitter is someone picked up a copy of Wailing Blade #1, and they looked at it and they said, and it was when it came out, not the Kickstarter, when it was in the wide release, and they literally said, "Wow, the art on this book is really good. I just wish that this guy admitted he was a blatant Humberto Ramos ripoff, and couldn't they have just paid Humberto Ramos to draw with his feet rather than look at this fucking hack?" And I was dying, dying, dying.